Sometimes we end up planning travel last minute. Sometimes it's by choice because we need a quick getaway or want to spend a couple nights out of town. And other times there are kind of, emergencies or urgent situations that require we leave. But either way, there's certain types of things you should keep in mind, certain tips, tricks, and pointers you should consider when planning last minute travel. So let's talk about those for just a little bit. Hey everyone, this is Ben, and welcome back to Explore Informed, where we dig into the details of travel so that the next time you go exploring, you can go just a little bit better informed. Today we're talking about last minute travel, and I'm going to use a trip I am currently planning as kind of the basis for this video. Today is Sunday, and I am planning a trip starting on Friday morning at 5:30 a.m. I know that is way too early. I have planned nothing, I have purchased nothing. I've done a little bit of research, but nothing is secured at this time. But I want to talk you through a couple things I have learned, seen, observed, things I probably already knew, but I have been reminded of when planning and researching a trip pretty last minute. Now, I don't know if you consider 4 or 5 days last minute. I consider that pretty last minute, especially for a trip that takes me out of the country. But for some of you, maybe last minute is a month out, 2 months out, or even 3 months out, or maybe further, I don't know. But either way, I think there are things you should think about that become more and more important the closer you get to the time at which you plan to travel. So let's jump into those things now. Tip number 1, look for new destinations. Maybe your favorite destination is not available. Maybe your go-to in the city of your choice is sold out, which is the case for me and my wife. I'm looking to plan a trip down to Mexico, and the hotel I wanted to stay at is sold out, as is the sister resort. But that's perfectly okay. That just means I'm going to have to stay somewhere else, which is probably a good thing, frankly. I think part of traveling is trying new things, expanding your horizons, and seeing something new. And staying at the same hotel and resort all the time isn't really doing that. So if you're traveling last minute, use that as an opportunity to see something new. Maybe explore a new resort, a different part of a new city, or even an entirely new city or region altogether. Traveling last minute is basically a series of compromises to some extent, and sometimes that is required, but those aren't necessarily compromises. Sometimes those are really benefits. Tip number 2, look at other airlines or other airports. I live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, as you guys may have figured out from some of my previous videos, which means I would ordinarily fly on American, of course. But the American flights to the destination of my choice are sold out, or rather they're not available for booking with award miles, which basically means that I'm going to have to fly a different airline, which is perfectly okay. What did I do? I got on google.com/flights or Google Flights or flights.google.com, whatever the URL is for Google Flights, and I searched for cash tickets. And lo and behold, I actually found a really good fare. I found a $300 one-way fare in first class down to Mexico on United, which is a pretty good deal, and I think I'm going to take that. So not being able to fly on American is not a big problem when I found a really cheap first class ticket internationally. I say internationally, down to Mexico on United. So try different airlines and maybe even different airports. If you live in a big metropolitan area, maybe you fly out of the same airport most of the time. You might need to consider flights from different airports if you're traveling last minute. Maybe you live in a small town and you may need to drive to the next big city in order to get a better fare, or maybe use your award miles for a last minute booking. So 2, consider different airlines and different airports. Number 3, be flexible with your dates and times. If you're booking last minute travel, often the most desirable dates and times are already sold out, that those flights are already full. You may need to consider different options like flying out Saturday and coming back Monday, or flying out Thursday, coming back Saturday. So when booking last minute travel, consider different dates and times. Usually around the weekends, I find that Fridays and Sundays are pretty busy, pretty booked up well in advance, and you may need to look at different options. Or you may need to look at really early flights. For example, I have a 5:30 a.m. flight booked on Friday morning. That is ugly, terrible. I'm going to dread that, but it's really the only option available last minute, so I will take it. Again, last minute travel is kind of a series of compromises with an end goal in mind of still being able to get away. So consider early flights, consider late flights, and consider flying on days that maybe aren't your first choice, like Wednesday, Thursday, or Monday, Tuesday. Number 4, consider destinations where maybe you can drive. If you can remove the whole airline component from traveling, that can be a good thing. If you really think about it, the airline component is pretty restricted. There's only X number of flights with Y number of seats operating to a certain destination each day, and if all those get sold out, they get sold out. They can't add more seats to the plane. So if you drive somewhere, that kind of removes that risk from your last minute travel. And oftentimes we think traveling means you have to get away, like far away. But that's not always the case. Sometimes traveling to the city next door or the city down the road is just as fun, feels just like the same escape as getting on a plane and going across the country. So consider driving somewhere that still means you can get away and maybe you can do it a little bit more easily. Number 5, and I feel like I can make a whole video about this or a whole series about this because this is kind of a pet peeve of mine, but travel and pack light. If you're traveling last minute for a long weekend, you're not going to be gone long. You really don't need that many things. Look at the destination, look at the weather, find out what you need, and pack light and be flexible. Part of last minute traveling again is being flexible. Maybe that last minute flight you bought requires a 3-hour layover. It'd be a lot easier to kind of manage that 3-hour layover with just a backpack on your back than a whole bunch of bags and extra junk. If you're not gone for long, pack light. And again, that's a whole different subject. I could probably talk about this for a very long time, but pack light, remain flexible, kind of go with the flow. And for number 6, prepare for higher prices. Again, there are certainly still deals to be had. As I mentioned, I found a $300 one-way flight, but that's not always the case. Those deals may not be there to be had. When traveling last minute, you're probably planning based on price much more than you might ordinarily. The prices are really going to be all across the board. You're going to see cheap up to extremely expensive. The airline and hotel inventory narrows and they have less and less left to sell. Those prices go up. So prepare for higher prices and prepare to hunt a little harder to find a good deal. Again, there are still deals out there, but you may have to look a bit harder for them, and you may just get stuck paying a little bit more than you had planned. So let me summarize. Number 1, look at new destinations. 2, look at different airlines or airports. 3, look at different dates and times. Number 4, consider destinations within driving distance. Number 5, pack light, be flexible, kind of go with the flow. And number 6, plan for higher prices and plan to look a little bit harder to find a great deal. I know these are kind of some quick and dirty tips, but these are lessons I have learned over the last day or two, and I wanted to share them with you all. As usual, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at ExploreInformed. You can also find us on the World Wide Web at www.exploreinformed.com. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time.